If you are coming to the Sonos Amp looking for power, you have come to the right place. But if the only reason you're getting the Sonos Amp is for the power, then don't get it. And in the process of doing this test, I almost burnt the house down. Hi guys, it's the weekend again, and the last weekend before the Sonos Arc drops for most of us. I will have my unit delivered on the 10th of June and it has been confirmed. I will drop a video talking about the Sonos Arc as soon as possible, and so subscribe and ring the notification bell so that you will be notified as soon as that video drops. In the meantime, let's look at the Sonos Amp to pass our time. Let's take a look at the Sonos Amp for what it does. Now, if you think about what the Sonos Amp does in audiophile terms, it is a streamer, a preamp of sorts, allowing for Wi-Fi and wired connection, and it does multi-room playback. It is a preamp that takes in Hdmi, RCA line level inputs, and it also crosses a subwoofer over. It is an amp, and it's heck of an amp. In this small chassis, it houses a Class D amplification stage that pushes 125 watts per channel with 8 ohms speakers. It actually handles 4 ohms easily, which is why you can easily wire 4 speakers to the amp, 2 in parallel for each channel. This technically allows the amp to power 3 pairs of speakers in parallel, but the resulting power draw might be a tad too much if the volumes were to be sustained high for long periods of time. Now, I have the Sonos Amp driving 4 Yamaha ICS 800 ceiling speakers. They are 8-inch woofers and comes with 1-inch directional tweeters. Those are 8 ohms speakers, but when I wire them in parallel, it actually presents a 4 ohm load to the amp. And the amp has been holding up well so far. So it's a great streamer and a great amp, but it's using the Sonos ecosystem, which also means that it doesn't support high-res at the moment. This could all change come 8th of June when the new S2 app drops. If you have been living under a rock, then you need to learn about the S2 app and what it does. The video link is placed here. The new Sonos S2 app promises to bring high-res music to the majority of the Sonos lineup, which is in the market today. Now, do you guys remember the Connect amp? That white and grey draped looking box of a Sonos amp? The Connect amp was a great way to hide Sonos sound. If you wanted Sonos, you would buy into speakers that look like every other Sonos speaker out there in the market. The old Connect amp gave an opportunity for someone to use the very capable Sonos controller to stream music and to play them back on a variety of speakers. Simply put, it was really a chance to customize the sound of Sonos, well, beyond the bass and treble settings that is available in the S1 controller app today. Now, if you love BMW sound, you could run them off the Connect amp. If you are a fan of American sound, run the Connect amp with SVS speakers. So basically, Sonos Connect amp was the window out of Sonos' very small world of mesh amp and speakers. Although most of the Sonos lineup is admittedly very well paired and matched between the amp and the speaker, one just can't help feeling that there's something out there that they're missing out. The Connect amp offered that, but it was ugly. And then the Sonos amp came along. Have you seen the Sonos amp in person? The old Connect amp was draped. It was grey, it was white, digital connection was non-existent, and there was only a pair of stereo RCA input. The Sonos amp is matte black, smooth to touch. It looks really pretty and handsome at the same time. It's something that the husband and the wife will find appealing at the same time. Now, before we test the Sonos amp for output power, let's take a quick look at the physical aspect of the amp. The front of the amp has 3 capacitive touch buttons: play, pause, volume up and down, and you swipe across to skip or track back. It looks very unassuming. It is only about 6 centimeters high, 22 centimeters across, and the sides will show you that it forms a perfect square, front to rear also at 22 centimeters. The top and the bottom are adorned by 2 circular vents. They're actually passive cooling and there's no fans extracting the air. But because hot air rises, they are naturally designed to draw the air from the bottom, sending it up to the top, presenting a path for the hot air to escape. This is ingenious because it allows for multiple amps to be stacked, and the vents will form a through passage to allow the hot air from the base unit to escape all the way to the top, channeling itself through. Then you move on to the back, and you see an ingenious speaker mounting post. These mounting posts are actually banana plugs on their own, and then you can remove them entirely, and the remaining post that sits flush across the back of the amp accepts any standard banana plugs that you might already have wired. They are very well made, and the meshing is great. Fit and finish is industrial quality, and I appreciate the quality of this set of connection, to the point that actually I think I might have decided to buy this amp simply because of how nice this looks. Moving on, there's a power cable input here, and you will see that the power cable is actually molded, even though it is a regular figure of 8 connection. Some call it the C7 connector, but the power cable is actually molded so that it sits flush along the chassis. I'm not sure whether this is worth spending the extra money on. The person who ends up paying for it is you and me, not Sonos, you know. So I really wonder how often people are going to look around to the back after an install. Above that, that will be the connect button. You really only need to use that button when you're setting up the amp. I don't even remember when was the last time I touched that button. Next, there is a HDMI port. Now, you will connect the HDMI port to your TV through the TV's HDMI ARC output. If you need optical, you need to buy a converter, which Sonos did not bundle with the Sonos Amp. It came with the Sonos Beam, but not with this guy. The 2 Ethernet port allows for incoming and pass-through connection, well, in case wireless is not your thing and you prefer a wire connection. There is a set of RCA inputs for stereo. I was never a big fan of analog input for Sonos because there's a lag, and if it is audio without needing to sync with video, then it doesn't really matter, but I never ended up using any of these because most of the time this is connected to the TV or the projector. The lag of 70 milliseconds is just unacceptable for me. Last but not least, there is a sub output. I was very excited about the sub output, and you can set the crossover on the Sonos Amp within the app, and it will cut off at the desired frequency to send the lower frequencies to the sub output, relieving your left and right speakers or any other speakers that you connect to the amp to do its own job without having to bother itself with the lower frequencies. So the possibility of pairing the speakers and the sub was magical, and I really thought I could tailor the sound to my own liking by pairing the right speaker and the right sub. Now, before we move on, let's quickly answer a very simple question. Does this guy deliver 125 watts of power per channel? Let's see. I'll be running a series of low frequency tones through the amp to be played out of the 4 Yamaha ceiling speakers that I have hooked up. Let's cut to the power test for this Sonos amp today. Did you expect the result? Let's see. Sonos rated this amp for 125 watts per channel at 8 ohms. I have my amp hooked up to 4 of such speakers presenting a 4 ohm load, which in theory is a bigger job for the amp to drive, and the amp draw should be higher. Now, during the test, as usual, I max out the volume to try to push the amp as hard as possible to see what the max power draw is. But I had to abort the test. Why? Right about 80 Hz, I detected a burning smell. I didn't think it was coming from the amp, so I kept pushing it, and then the smell got stronger, and I realized that things were falling from the ceiling. The plaster was flaking and the white stuff started coming out, and I had to abort it halfway. The smell was coming from the speakers. Right now, the whole room is smelling really bad. Something has definitely been burning up. I think it is the speakers, but anyway, in the name of science and for the love of electronics, I do it so you don't have to. Now, the max power drawn from the wall was tipping 300 watts in total for both channels. The amp is well capable of delivering way above its stated power delivery. And if you refer to the power draw test I did for the Sonos Sub, this little amp here is right amongst those ranks. The amp is putting out 20% more power than the Sub on its own. And if you are interested in the power test for the Sub, click the link above. If not, I'll tell you that the peak measured output from the Sub was 245 watts. This guy is putting out 315 watts. This is some serious power. Now, I understand why it was able to drive my floor standards with ease. And this is why I'm saying, if you're looking for power, this is where you will find it. 6 centimeters high, 22 cm by 22 cm. Sexy like hell, 300 watts. Moving on, where does the amp sit in the Sonos lineup? Who is it for? Do you need it? Sonos Amp is one of the 2 products in the Sonos range with an HDMI port, the other being the Sonos Beam. As of 10th of June, the Sonos Arc will join the ranks of the Sonos products with a HDMI ARC input. I own the Beam and I own the Amp, and even the Sonos Port, which was launched after the Amp, didn't come with an HDMI port. What does the HDMI port mean for Sonos, and what does it mean for you? Well, it is simply the single easiest way to get TV sound into your network of Sonos speakers. So this is how you think of it, right? You have the world of music with which you access via the Sonos streaming services. And you want to connect the TV to your Sonos network of speakers. So what do? If you had the Sonos Connect back then, or even the Connect M or the Sonos Play 5 Gen 1, you could connect the TV with a line level output, and from one of those devices, multi-room the heck out of all your TV sound. But that will mean that you are actually introducing a lip sync delay of at least 70 milliseconds. This might not be perceptible to some, but it irritates the hell out of me. I can't focus on the music if the explosion is happening on screen and the sound only reaches your ears later. Boom. Boom. The point is, if sound needs to be synced with video, you should not get it into the Sonos system via an analog input. There are only 2 other ways you can get sound from the TV into a Sonos system with digital inputs. Yes, and that is the Sonos Play Bass and the Play Bar. Arguably, the Play Bass and the Play Bar are better sounding than the Sonos Beam, but the Play Bass and the Play Bar relies on an ancient optical input for sound. No HDMI. So you don't get your CEC control, you have no power control, no volume control, nothing. If you wanted to control the volume, you will have to hope that Sonos recognizes your TV remote if it still uses IR. But for newer TVs that uses Bluetooth or radio frequency for remote, then good luck. You can't control the volume through an optical cable. The only other way to control the volume is then to use the volume keys on the soundbar itself or use the Sonos controller app. Both not ideal when you're just trying to quickly change the volume. And that's why I ended up with the Sonos Beam rather than the Play Bass or the Play Bar, although the sound would arguably have been better on those 2 machines. But then again, the Beam is at a great price point, and any savings that I have over the Play Bar or the Play Bass, I'll put it towards a Sub, which will then make the Beam sound infinitely better than both the Play Bass or the Play Bar. So I've paired a lot of speakers with this guy to try to find out what works for me. And the list of speakers that I have connected to the Sonos Amp, the list here is I have the SVS Prime Bookshelf, the SVS Prime Towers, the SVS Prime Satellite small ones, the BMW 607 Emotiva Air Motifs, both the B1s and the slightly slimmer E1s, and of course my Yamaha NSIC 800. I have also paired them with a pair of clips, RB51 Mark II, yes, and DALI Sensor 7 and DALI Opticon 6, both floor standards. Now you have noticed that I've thrown a variety of speakers at the amp, from the smallest of the satellites to the biggest of the floor standards and everything in between. And the list of subs that I've connected the amp to will be the clips is the R115 SW 15-inch cones, SVS SB1000, SVS SB3000, BMW ASW 610, the CAF 8B, and the small DALI Fazon Sub 1. So you will notice that I have run them with small subs as small as the DALI with a 6-inch cone, and the big ones like the clips with a 15-inch cone. So what was my experience pairing the speakers with the sub? Basically, The amp had no problems driving any of the speakers that I have thrown at it. Even the SVS Prime towers with so many drivers and at such a large volume wasn't presenting a problem to the amp. Remember, this guy was capable of pushing 300 watts and drawing it from the wall. I guess they're all relatively efficient and easy to drive in the first place. The only one that seems to have a problem with matching was the Inmotiva speakers. Both the B1 and the E1. I actually primarily bought those for home theater use. And while they were great at throwing up a good soundstage, they had zero grip on the bass. The Dali Opticon 6 had a similar problem as the sound was quite thin, but it wasn't as bad because the drivers were actually bigger. Then I realized those speakers that I had problems, they were all using ribbon tweeters. I can't explain, I don't know the science behind it. Maybe it's because the crossover was channeling more power to the tweeters and therefore making it relatively sharper and the grip on the bass was weaker. Can't be sure if that's the reason, but it did definitely sound relatively thinner than say the SVS Prime bookshelf. The smaller speakers like the Prime Satellites and the BMW 607 were expectedly weaker in the bass department due to the size anyway, but they didn't sound thin. Vocals were still nicely projected and sounded quite rounded, but they would definitely need a sub to sound more exciting. Which brings me to the point of subs. Now this is where I gave up on the sub output of the amp. The output level was way too low for it to be useful in any way. The Cav 8Bs and the Dali Fazon Sub 1, they were very small and I had to actually max out the volume on the sub and they were barely audible. I had to bring the sub levels on the Sonos app to plus 11 or plus 12 before I could even hear any semblance of bass augmentation. The BMW ASW610s was responding a little bit better, but the peakier bass notes were causing the big bass excursion in the cones, and I got worried looking at the small cones, and it's almost jumping out of the sub cabinet. The SVS SB1000 and the 3000 and the Klipsch R115SW were producing a lot of bass. Now, in fact, way too much bass, and it's not in a good way. The sound was very boomy, it sounded overpowering to the point that some male vocals were sounding unnatural already. And if you're trying to play music with a full soundtrack with instruments, basically the bass notes were drowning out everything else with an incessant boom. Now this is what I'm suspecting. The sub output is so low, I ended up pushing the sub gain to very high levels, which means that whatever came in will be amplified a lot higher. A low amplitude note will be amplified this much, and a high amplitude note will be amplified exponentially and relatively more than the low amplitude note. This presented too wide a dynamic range for the sub's onboard amp. And because the level output on the sub is so low, you end up turning the sub output on the Sonos controller for the Sonos amp a lot higher. And that compounds the problem. So the end result is that I could never find the correct match for the sub to any of the speakers that I wanted to pair them with. Now the best sound and the fuller sound came from the SVS Prime Tower, without a third-party sub matched. Then it struck me, oh, actually, I should and I could pair it with a Sonos Sub. That instantly increased the listening value of all the speakers that I have paired with the amp. The Sonos Sub is such a darling in the Sonos ecosystem. If you have not watched my video on the Sonos Sub, I'm putting a link up here. So basically, everything that you pair with the Sub sounds instantly better. The sound is more full-bodied. Now, the most interesting combo I've had did not come from the most powerful speakers, not the SVS Prime Towers. It came from the Yamaha ceiling speakers. Now, it's amazing what concealed speakers do to your mind. So of course I tucked the sub in the corner of the room and I just let the music come through. I could not localize the source of the sound. Couldn't hear where it was coming from. And I could not locate the bass because I've tucked it away in the corner. Now you forget about imaging. You forget about the sound stage. Forget about where the stereo is coming from. Forget about whether the instrument is on the left or the right. There's no pinpoint accuracy, no finesse from the ceiling speakers. But the whole room just presented a wall of sound and music. I loved it so much. I actually spent about 2 hours every day for the next couple of days, stuck with that setup and listening to every genre of music and finding myself appreciating the crap, non-existent soundtrack. Just pure music flowing all around me, surrounding me. And that's what you get with ceiling speakers, and that has been the setup I've been running with the Sonos Amp for the longest time. The Sonos Amp is not without limitations and issues. First, dodgy surround sound support. I haven't been very successful in getting this to recognize Dolby Surround. I know I'm not the smartest guy around in terms of trying to set up stuff for Sonos, but so many of the settings are so obscured and the literature on their compatibility is hidden on some pirate island somewhere. I can't find it. And I haven't been able to get definitive answers on whether this Sonos Amp actually supports surround sound or not. Now, in short, when I paired a pair of Sonos Ones as the rear speakers, there's no surround sound output. I can't hear the surround sound from the Sonos One. I suspect it's got to do with the missing center channel, but I can't be sure. It creates a phantom center channel, right? But it's still not a pure center. Second, no high-res audio. The Sonos Amp is also without high-res audio support. But, like I mentioned earlier in this video, this might all change in a couple of days. Stay tuned for my review of the S2 app and what it does for all the Sonos products that I own. Do subscribe so that you can catch up on that video when I push it out as soon as the S2 app launches. Third, the sub output level is so low. I've explained earlier why I was so disappointed with this guy working with third-party subs. You either can't hear anything or you are hearing too much and it's booming incessantly. I just couldn't find a sub to work. It's almost like Sonos wanted you to only use their own sub. Fourth and last, there is no True Play. Now this is a big thing. Okay, granted, True Play requires Sonos to actually know the profile of your speakers. So it will change the signal to match how it sounds based on the environment that you're in. So True Play can only deal with one variable at a time. And the only variable that they can deal with is your environment. Sonos cannot deal with different cones, different speakers sounding different. But I maintain this to be completely unreasonable excuse. Why? Home theaters have been set up around AV amps, which are capable of running their own version of room correction software. Most AVRs come with a mic, which the AVR then listens to the sound that comes out through each speaker and measures what it hears coming back into the mic. There's so many such systems out there. Notably, there's Odyssey, used by Marantz and Denon, to even Onkyo's own EQ, and Anthem's ARC, Yamaha's YPAO, Direct, so many. Establishing the baseline sound, it is then able to do the necessary tuning to the delays for each channel so as to possibly pull down the peaks and boost frequencies so that it can tailor the sound it receives back to what it was trying to play in the first place. Now, if different characteristics of speakers is an issue, match that with a baseline tune and adjust from there. I have confidence in Sonos that they will learn to implement this one in the not so distant future. So now, the only tuning you can do is to answer two questions that Sonos is asking you. Which one is louder, the sub playing at 0 or 180 degrees phase output, and then asking you what is the distance of the rear surround speakers from your listening position. So it adjusts the delay. This is by far the laziest form of room correction I've encountered in the past 20 years. Sonos, come on, you can do better. At least automatically tune for delay and phase, right? Even if you're not doing EQ, which is fine, you can still explain it because you have a poor excuse of saying that you don't know the speaker's profile, but definitely automatically tuning for delay and phase is easy enough, and not doing it is just plain lazy. That said, do I love the Sonos Amp? Yes, I do. Despite its quirks and some bugs, I have found a use for it, and that is to drive my ceiling speakers. Hopefully they are not burnt out by now. Those speakers were left in place from my 11.2 channel Atmos home theater setup. I made the bold move into a fully wireless domain, and that's why I only have wireless speakers around me in the house right now. So why? Because I wanted to declutter. Another story, another time, I will tell you that. For now, I'm just loving the Sonos Amp. It is my window from the Sonos world staring out into the open world of possibilities, as well as into my past, reminding me of the world that was once wired that I have left behind. So alright guys, this is it. The next video will be about the Sonos S2 app and followed by the Sonos Arc. The embargo has been lifted on the Sonos Arc now, and you would have already seen some reviews and videos talking about the feature set of the Sonos Arc. As usual for my videos, I'll do it a little bit differently. I'll give you an idea of what it feels like, what it looks like, how it sounds like with its recording. And ideally, with a comparison video and a sound test between the Sonos Arc and the Sonos Beam, its little brother. So subscribe to stay tuned and watch out for those videos. Take care and see you very, very soon.